Welcome to this kind of agri-web seminar. I hope all of you are safe here at your homes. Now, you all must be wondering what a cop is doing out here. So, let me just brief you the background from where I'm coming actually. Uh, Presently, I'm Superintendent of Police in one of the remotest and rural district of India called as Dhemaji that belongs in Assam. It is at the foothills of Arunachal. And but that is not the capacity in which I'm coming right now. I'll be speaking mostly in my capacity as a personal academician. Basically, 2 years back, I was in UK appreciating a mid-career course, MSc in Science and Technology Policy. So that is where I came out with a research topic called as Precision Policy Making in Indian Agriculture using AI and Big Data. So 2018 is when I used to be there. I should say it was 2018 BC, that is before Corona, as the world is currently divided into BC and AC. As you all know, Harari says, this crisis is going to hasten the speed of history, and so it is also going to hasten the speed of adoption of technology, transition between Industry 3.0 to Industry 4.0. And in that context, I personally see this as an opportunity if we convert one. So I'll very quickly talk upon my particular area of research, that is precision policy making in Indian agriculture using AI and big data. Although this session is about the smart villages, as Mr. Parul rightly said, agriculture sector is one of the sector when we talk about the villages. So we cannot think of adopting technology, adopting the 4.0 inside the villages, inside the agriculture sector, and not think of villages. So that is where we are here. I could listen to some of the wonderful presentations since in the morning. I also listened to the address of Honorable Minister, and I must tell you that I'm very thrilled with this very idea and the way we are all thinking. There's a lot of synergy in what was told here already and what I'm now going to talk about. I'm going to talk mostly from the government sector. That is where I come from. Although I'm into police, basically Indian Police Service, but like you all must be aware that we also belong to the Indian bureaucracy, and we can shift from any departments and anywhere. And that is where the new concept of entrepreneurial bureaucracy is coming these days. So in entrepreneurial bureaucracy, we also want to shed the conventional way of doing business in the government. We want to take a departure from the way we used to make policies here, and a new concept that is coming up is of entrepreneurial bureaucracy. That's a merger of industry plus the government. Can the bureaucrats themselves be entrepreneurs? So I'm going to present one use case of that in agriculture. Allow me to take you all through a very small presentation. When I say about precision policy making, I have borrowed the term precision from precision medicine. So essentially what I mean is, can we customize the policy making to the specific villages or farm levels? As you are aware, India has 127 agroclimatic zones which are made by the nature, and they're quite unique. We have 263 million numbers of farmers and cultivators which primarily reside in the rural part of India, and whereas we have a huge burden of farmer suicides, and that has been a tragedy for India. But despite this, despite having 127 agroclimatic zones, we have a single unified policy. For example, policy of MSP. So that is my pain point that I'm taking. Now, what are the government responses? Government current responses in the agriculture sector are basically price-based and non-price-based. In the price-based, we have MSPs, we have tax subsidies to the fertilizers. In the non-price-based, we have loan waivers, PM Kisan, ENAM, marketing, Agricop insurance is there, and so on. But that somewhere there is a one-size-fits-all approach, which is what I'm trying to make a case for changing. So what happens when we have a pan-India policy like MSP? So first of all, that is applicable for entire year. So the policy is revised only in the next Kharif or next Rabi, and that is based on old data. suppose the policy, MSP policy that is being looked at currently is based on the data of 2018 and which was processed in 2019, and that is being applicable by our farmers today, whereas the world has moved around. So as a result of this, we see certain problems like there's a bumper crop production, there's a price fall in certain commodities, and in other commodities we have shortages. So now, what is the solution? The solution I was imagining was twofold: the product innovation and the policy innovation. And if you combine these two, that is what I'm calling as precision policy making. So without taking you through these jargons, I'll quickly explain what is a product innovation. So basically, I'm making a case or a policy advocacy for government stepping in and government creating this particular big data analytical platform in which we'll map various data taken from everywhere. So typically we will hold a company. The government should float a PSU called as AgriDome or something, you name it, anything. So this company will initially lay down a huge network of big data sensors. These sensors will be mostly related to different areas like environmental sensors, map the precise soil patterns, the weather patterns, the water table, the irrigation problem patterns. The same company will take the data on farmers, that is cropping pattern, what is the area under cultivation, how is the crop health, what is the land data, land records, and the third set of data is economic data. So data on the agri inputs, input price data that differs from every mandi to mandi, from output prices, the demand and supply, the agri credit prices, crop insurances. We can also tag in scientific data like any patents floated worldwide, agriculture universities writing some papers. We can take some data from the feedback from the farmers, the policy watch globally we can harvest into this particular platform, and we create a product with bolstering this huge big data that will come through. We need to process this data, and this is available when we are talking about 2020. So when we process the data based on the AI and the big machine learning capabilities, we would get something called as a prescription, policy prescription. So that is what I'm calling as policy innovation. So this policy prescription is basically something which will show to our farmers as to what they should grow. So in fact, one of the speakers mentioned about Microsoft AI-based engine, AI app. So that is somewhat similar I'm talking about, but this time it is the government who is trying to make it. So this company or a body, a single umbrella body, that is why I've called it as AgriDome or something. So this will be a single mentorship body for all the corporate, all the farmers, all the supply chains, and all the stakeholders. It will be customized to region or the farmer. It will be highly evidence based, and it will be real time. It will be adaptive. So this is this policy prescription will be both dynamic in terms of space and time. So how it will be, I'll explain in some while. And through this, we can also facilitate the technology adoption as well as cooperative farming and sorts like that. So the plan of action that I'm proposing through my policy advocacy is that, as I've already talked, this company would lay out the big data sensors, and there'll be a algorithm. Based on that, it will be shown. Now, suppose I am a farmer of state like, for example, Karnataka. So the moment I feel that my crop is ready for sowing, I simply have to go to my nearest agri kiosk in my village, and I'll give my authentication. When I give my authentication, biometric or otherwise, the GIS map of my own field would pop up on the screen. This GIS data will be historical data. It will also show on as to what were the cropping patterns that I took in last 5 years, what were the yield return on investments. This smart algorithm at my place back in Karnataka is going to know what is the precise pattern of environmental factors in my field, what is the water table, what is the weather today and likely to be in the next 6 months, what are the agri input prices prevailing in my particular tehsil of that Karnataka example, what are the prices internationally prevailing, what are the demands looking at, and based on all these choices, the algorithm is going to suggest me a list of say 20 basket of choices. So maybe I'm from Karnataka, so maybe I come from semi-arid region, so I should be growing jowar this time. So number one will be a policy prescription for me to grow jowar in my 2.5 acre price. Doesn't matter even if it is low land holding size. I get number one as jowar. Whereas we are a democracy, I may not like to go with the jowar. I may not have technical know-how. I'm not comfortable with that with my family background. So maybe I would like to go for number two, which would be soybean. If not, maybe number three, some vegetables. So this suggestion will be necessarily taking into account what grows best in my area and what is required in the country as such. So suppose tomorrow our this algorithm maps that there is going to be a drought in Africa, say on cotton, or there is an attack of bollworm in say Southeast Asia. Very quickly we know that there is an opportunity which we can cash by producing more cotton. So, but then we don't tell this to every person, every farmer in the country. We tell only those farmers where the cotton really grows and where there's a potential. So there the cotton would pop up on the higher choices. In my research, I found that, and this is a well-known fact, that to grow 1 kilogram of rice in the field, we require 2,500 liters of water if you're a farmer in this area, that is Northeast or Bengal. But if you want to grow 1 kilogram of same rice in Punjab and Haryana and that belt, you require 4,500 liters of water. But despite that, if you look at the figures of production, we have more rice grown in Punjab and Haryana. So this is counterintuitive. We are depleting the water table out there. So how do you dissuade the farmers of that region by growing for not growing the rice, and how do you persuade farmers where it grows to grow it? So this we can do by incentivizing the farmers to choose the number one, number two, number three, or the topmost choices by offering inverted pyramid kind of incentive matrix. Which means if I'm a farmer of that Karnataka example, and if I want to go with my first choice offering, which was jowar, then I get a better subsidy. I get higher MSP for my field for jowar. I get free seeds, free fertilizers, or whatever higher subsidy on fertilizers, free electricity, maybe a tractor solution or something. If I choose number two, I get slightly lesser offering. Number three, slightly lesser offering. So likewise, if I'm a farmer from Punjab, so my algorithm is going to reflect the rice to be grown on the 20th priority, so that I don't get anything. And despite that, if I want to grow, doesn't matter. But this economy is going to make wonders, and that is going to modify the choices of our farmers because we are telling them on an evidence-based this thing. By that way, we will never have bumper crop production, because the moment there is a optimal crop production, say of onions in the country, our algorithm is going to know that okay, this much is the cropping period right now, and this is the likely yield 2 months later or 6 months later, which means now we should stop or dissuade farmers from growing onions anymore. So wherever it was there on the second or third choice, it falls down. So that is why I say it is a dynamic policy making. It is a precise policy making. So the MSP is going to differ for jowar if I am from Karnataka. It is going to differ if I am from Punjab, and it is going to differ if I am from Manipur. So that is what I called as precision policy making. Not only that, it is going to differ my MSP in my field vis-a-vis my neighbor field. Now we can also promote the cooperative farming. Somebody talked in the morning that we have a problem or burden of low land holding size. So, like if I say that I'm a farmer with 2.5 acres and I want to grow, the same algorithm would talk to me, hey, if you come back with some of your neighbors and make it a large farm size of 40 acres, you get still more offering. So economy is the one, the package or the incentive that this model will try to forge the alliances between the cooperative farmers. So all of them come together, and then this AgriDome company basically gives them that kind of technological solutions. Now, the moment I choose number three as a crop, for example, I choose soybean in that my example. So the moment I choose, will be some kind of agreement between me and me as a farmer and the AgriDome company. So that agreement will be that whatever choices that were offered at the time of signing in that agreement, the Agridome will be committed on behalf of Government of India or that particular state government to offer to me based on milestone payments. And my crop will be constantly monitored by this company. So the moment the crop sprouts, I get my first milestone payment. The moment there is some troubleshoot, there is some issue, there is some pest attack, I go back to that, and there will be some mentors from this company who will ensure that all is at the optimal level. Secondly, the moment I have chosen this contract with the Agridome company, the farm insurance or the Fasal Bima is compulsorily activated. So there is no choice. There is no nobody slipping out of this particular scheme of Fasal Bima Yojana. And secondly, by that way, we can offer these solutions to technological interventions to farmers. We can cross-pollinate the very good best practices in the community. We can take factor in farmers' feedback on the same data, and that can play wonders to all the farmers. Now, how do I monetize this company? This Agridome company would basically seek some subsidy in the funds from the government, but we won't charge anything to the farmers. Instead, we are sitting this Agridome company would be data rich, so it will have precise data on the number of farms, number of farmers, the likely yields, the likely outputs in next 6 months, and this data will be monetized by giving precise data to the food processing companies or the supply chains or the corporates. We can foster the F2C linkages, and we might charge the big corporates, the ag tech companies, those who want to build upon this. If tomorrow government wants to extend the precision agriculture solution to certain farms based on some, say somebody is from a deprived section, low land holding, or from a low income category, or where there is already suicide in the family, or any other social cause. So maybe this company can extend the agriculture precision agriculture solution through third party, and the government might pay the premium for that. And there are several models. So what I'm talking essentially is to create a stack of technology enablement plus the policy enablement for the entire agriculture revamp, and through which we will basically have a controlled production, controlled in the best manner, to have the most optimal kind of production, and optimal usage of the resources. What are the caveats? Obviously, it is going to require a lot of meticulous designing of the algorithm. The data sensors will have to be very specific and of high sensitivity. The issues of data privacy in the cyber attack and all those obviously need to be addressed. There is an issue of political feasibility, but then I just pulled out an example like FRBM Act we have on the economic side. There was a wonderful thing. Second was about GST, which was a federal act, and we came out with that. So if there is a will, there is a way. And currently, this particular COVID crisis is likely to offer us that kind of opportunity to maybe go forward with that. So my last policy prescription for the government would be to foster in this kind of entrepreneurial bureaucracy. What is entrepreneurial bureaucracy? So I belong to the government right now. My rank in the government of India would be somewhere like Deputy Secretary to the government of India. So me or somebody like me would like to pitch in. Like I say, I walk up to the government and say that please give me 3 years of undisturbed tenure, give me funds, give me some power to make smart contracts, give me some leeway from the current tendering policies and all that, because it's a special case. We have to care for farmers. It's an emergency. And then in return, what I give is I give this kind of company in the milestone things. In 1 year, we lay out big data sensors. When I say big data sensor, it's all about economic indication plus economic factors plus the big data artificial intelligence sensors. We have ample technology stacks available everywhere. We have good big data, remote sensing capability of the satellites. We have artificial intelligence. It is there everywhere in the silos. Somebody needs to bring all those technologies and put together. So that is what a dedicated bureaucrat who is looking after one particular area would be able to do. So that will also, this company or this bureaucrat will aggressively push for the agri-tech innovation and incubation with the ag tech companies. There will be constantly horizon scanning, and there will be hackathons and ideathons, and it will be dedicated kind of this thing for a lastly, what I call as radically transformative precision policy making. So that's all I had from my side.